Eve is our embellishment value estimator, and it is designed to show you the cost models of adding different types of embellishments to your print and see how that affects the pricing. So what we always say is this is not to replace your MIS systems. That should always take precedence, but you can use this as your estimation tool to see the cost of how adding different embellishments will change the pricing, and you can use it as a face-to-face with your clients. And you can also set this up as your own system. So what we're going to show you here, it is all completely free. We don't charge for it. We just want to be able to help people see the value of using fifth color and embellishment. So couple of things in here. So first of all, we had a recent request as to whether or not we could do a light version. That being that the dark colours, they don't particularly like it, and they wanted a light. So we have added a theme change. So over here we have the dark and light, so we can now see it all in light. So let's work in the light version. So that was a customer request, and as always we take customer requests very seriously, and we will do our best to add that to it. So what we also had is a new change to the waste model. So previously we were using a flat waste model, meaning that you could put in, say, 3% as a flat waste to say wastage 3%, and it would calculate it in for you, and it worked fine. But that's not really true to working reality when it comes to print embellishments and with adding different types of fifth color, because you may have a different wastage at a different stage. For example, if you basically have only print and that's all you're doing, you can say, yeah, flat waste 2%, no problem. But if you start adding in lamination and then embellishments, then if you are changing or have production issues at different stages, it affects the cost. So to make this nice and simple, we've added in a what is stepped waste model. So that's what we're going to be using. So Visualis3R calculates the waste using a stepped waste model. So instead of adding it all together, we take a small amount of the waste applied at each different production stage. Because the other thing is, you can't just say, well, let's set up 2% for the print. Let's say we're going to add 4% for the lamination wastage, and we'll add 6% for embellishment wastage. It doesn't equate to 12%, because you've got to take in the math model based on each stage of the production. So using a simple test here, 1,000 sheets, print waste 2%. So when you print 1,000 sheets with print waste at 2%, you're going to lose 20 sheets. So you're down to 980 sheets. Those 980 sheets go through to the lamination process. Now you might have more problems with lamination. You might have a higher wastage, so maybe 4%, in which case 4% of the 980 is 39 sheets lost. So now you've only got 941 sheets remaining in your production. So then that goes into the embellishment phase, adding on the embossing, whether you're doing foiling or whatever else. And again, you may have a higher wastage at that because of anything from, fold increasing, die cutting. There could be a whole number of reasons. So then you're going to lose 56 sheets. So you're now down to 855 sheets of final print production. So your result is you're losing 115 sheets in total when you start out with 1,000 sheets. So this effectively works out a 13.6% wastage, not 12%, because you've got to do a cumulative wastage step through the process. So based on that, you can use this in our system. So let's go and see what we have in here. So one of the new changes is we have changed from millimeters to inches, because we want to make sure that our American friends are nice and happy because they don't use millimeters. So we have the ability to change it over. So let's pretend we're going to work in America today. I'm going to switch that over to inches, and I'm going to switch my currency over to US dollars. So all the interface changes. So let's say we're going to make 1,000 finished pieces. We want to have let's say we're going to do 4 up on a sheet. The sheet width is going to be, let's go 19 width by 13 inches in the height. Now let's say we're going to do this digital. So at the moment we put 0 in for the base setup. So the base setup would really be things like make ready plates, etc. Now we don't really know what you want to charge for that. Maybe you say $350 for pre-flight checking and whatever else you're going to do to get the files over to the machine. Okay, now to start off, are we just printing this on its own? So if we're not going to do any other embellishments, then all we see here is the print wastage. So if I'm printing a 4-color job, I'll put in my flat waste at 2%, therefore the total effective waste is 2%, okay? But if we start adding on other embellishments, which we will do, then these boxes will become active, and I'll demonstrate that. So let's first of all set our substrate. So let's pretend we're printing this on a rainbow holographic board. Maybe I'm using that lovely rainbow holographic material from Uniluster, the Uniluster DI Rainbow. Beautiful material. Let's say that's 85 cents a sheet. Now these are fictitious prices. I don't know what the pricing is. You need to set your pricing in here for what you want to charge. So you can say, oh, I don't want to charge 2% print waste. I want to charge 3%. No problem. Stick that in there. Maybe you're paying 84 cents, whatever it is, put it in. Now you've got the CMYK click cost. So this is based on using a digital type engine. Now again, we don't know what you're paying. Maybe you're paying 14 cents as a click charge. So you can put that in. If you're not doing a click charge, you can toggle that to no and it won't calculate the CMYK. You could then add in your own through an extra for your CMYK and put in either a fixed cost or a per sheet cost. So there are different ways to do it. Now let's add it on some tooling. So I'm actually going to do some embossing on this one. So I'm going to add a emboss die and I'm going to charge a one-off fee. So this tooling is a one-off or reusable fee. So basically the embossing here, let's say it's $450. Now the great thing about this is when I come to do my job, I can toggle this box on and off and show my customer, well, this is what it costs at the moment because we're adding in a die. But if you reprint the file and you do another 1,000 copies, we've already got the die, so we can switch it off and we can see how that affects the difference in your costings. So we'll demonstrate that as well later on. Next, we're going to do some special colours. So all of these are what we call fifth colour. And this is a clear distinction, what some people kind of get wrong, is the differentiation between fifth colour and embellishment. So for us, a fifth colour is literally what it says. It's a colour. So we're going to add two fifth colours in here. So I've added it twice. So first of all, I'm going to do a white. So white ink. And I'm going to do a click cost. Let's say that's 11, let's say it's 11 cents a sheet. And I'm going to do 3 hits of that white because we want to get that real opaque white down. And this is very important. When you're printing with white ink, it's not 100% white ink on a digital device. So you normally get recommended to put 3 hits down to get that real solid white ink. Now this becomes more apparent when you're using coloured stock. So for example, if you print on black paper and you print 1 hit of white, it's going to come out kind of ghosted. Now do take over, check in our Academy page of our website. If you go to the menu here, go to Academy, there's a video tutorial that teaches you all about how the different hits of white ink work and how they look and how you can set that up in your Visualis3R software. But let's just say we're going to go with 3 hits of white. Then we've got coverage. How much of the sheet is taken up by that white ink? Now, if you're printing on a metallic substrate, you're probably going to use a heavy amount of white ink to block out most of that substrate, so only certain areas come through in rainbow holographic. So maybe we're going to say 60 to 90% of the sheet is going to be covered with the white ink. So currently we're putting in some sort of like benchmark settings of certain like areas of how much of the sheet is going to be covered. We are looking at adding in actual calculations based on ripped data. That may come out in the future, so be aware that we may well bring that out later on, in which case we'll be taking actual data from the ripped file and calculating it accurately that way. But for now, we're just going to set this in as saying we're going to do a heavy coverage. Now, what else do we have? Well, we have other colours. So on our digital device, we might have the silver, gold, clear, neon pink, neon yellow, or we might have like, maybe we're doing on, say, a Swiss Q print. Maybe we've got a neon orange. Maybe we're using the new Fujifilm Revori's neon green colour. Or we might be doing it on a flexo and offset press, in which case we might be using expanded colour gamut inks. So you can set that up to whichever one you want. So let's say we're going to use a pink. Now in this case, then pink, again, let's say maybe it's like 11 cents, and we'll say, okay, I'm happy with pink with just 1 hit. I just want it on the name on the front of the book. So let's say, for example, we're doing a book cover, and the name on the book, Richard's Story. Maybe Richard's Story is the bit that's in pink. So that's what we call an accent amount, a small area of the design that's going to be in the pink. So in this case, I'm just going to say I'm happy with 1 hit of ink, or maybe decide, no, actually we'll do 2 hits. So factor all that in. So you can set up how you want to change the number of hits and the coverage of those special inks. Now let's move down a little bit. So now we have this section down here. So we've got some pre-configured settings in here for the embellishment. So an embellishment, what we say an embellishment, is something that's added to the print. So something that goes on top, like a coating, a lamination, spot UV varnish, something that's tactile, something that's raised, something that's embossed, foiling, hot foiling, Duplo, Scodex, that kind of thing, in our opinion, is an embellishment. Okay, so it's a difference between embellishment and 5th color, which is why we have them broken down into separate categories. So let's say, for example, we're going to be doing a lamination on here. Well, now we've done that, we've got a little box that pops up down here. So you'll see here, now you see it, now you don't. Now you can put in a description. So in all of these new sections, you can add a client description, and I'll explain why in a moment. So we're going to leave this blank for now, okay? Lamination, pretty self-explanatory. Now we can charge that per sheet or repeat. We can charge it per unit or a flat fee or a labor fee. So in this case, we might say per sheet, we're going to charge 6 cents. And that is to cover and laminate the entire sheet, okay? So pretty self-explanatory. We'll add another one in. So let's go and add in the emboss, because don't forget we did add an emboss die up here. So I'm going to add my emboss. Now this is the cost to physically actually emboss the sheet. It's separate and different from the emboss die, which is a fixed one-off cost. This is the mechanical process of embossing the sheet. The cost to emboss each printed sheet. So you can put it in a description. And again, you can do it per sheet, per repeat, per job, or whatever you want to set that up for. And we're going to say that's maybe 7 cents. So again, these are fictitious prices. Now we can also add in a proofing or a testing stage. Maybe we're doing a mock-up. Maybe we're going to charge $150 for a proof. So we can add that in there as well. Now, down here as an estimator or a business owner like a printer, you can put in your global markup. So how much markup do you want to charge above the base costs? Okay. Now this is obviously what you're going to see as a printer. So let's just say I'm going to add on 12%. I'm not that greedy. 12% sounds good. Now we can also put in a tax or VAT. So I've put in 20% here. It's based on, obviously I'm English, so I put the VAT as 20%. But put in whatever tax or VAT you want to charge. Now, because we added in the emboss and the lamination, we need to scroll back up and check our wastage. So remember, before we set the print waste to 3%, the lamination waste is set to 4 and 6. Now you might decide you want it different. So let's just say, for example, we're going to go with 2. And notice this calculation down here changes. If I put in that at 6, the effective waste changes. So we can set all this up the way we want to work. So let's just keep it at 2, 4, and 6 for now. So you set your pricing. You set your wastage. So with that in mind, we've now set up all the different settings that we need. So we can now look at the results on this section over here. So we can say that we need 283 sheets to produce this job. The cost for the base cost, which is the price of the material, plus your CMYK setup, okay, is going to be $630. The tooling is the one-off cost. That was the die that we added in there. That's $450. Special colours, that is calculated by the surface area, the coverage of the sheet, the clicks, etc. calculated in. So 2 hits, 3 hits. Now let's just give you a quick example here. So down here we have 3 hits of white, okay, and we've got our special colour cost. We also have a breakdown below here, so we can see the special white, the cost per sheet based on 3 hits at the coverage we specified is just over 24 cents a sheet, which gives you a total of $74. Now that's based on 3 hits of white. If I then reduce that down to 2 hits and say, look, I think, maybe I'm talking to a customer, maybe I think we can get away with 2 hits of white, and in doing so, we can drop that price down to $46.70 because we're reducing the amount of white ink. So you can talk through with your customer the difference in costings, etc., by changing the hits of white. Okay, so that's a great little tool to be able to show you how that mathematically calculates. And you might think, okay, well, the neon pink's coming in at 0.022, and you think, okay, well, that's really low. Well, you've only got literally an accent area with 2 hits of pink, and if we go down to 1 hit of pink, it's literally, pennies. I mean, cents, whatever you call it in America. So it's mathematically calculated to the nth degree to give it as accurate as we can get it. Okay, so we also have our setup down here, so we can see the setup cost, the proofing cost, the embossing as a physical cost, and the machine production cost for embossing, etc. So what else did we have? So we had the special colours in here. It's a cumulative total of the neon pink and the white combined together, these 2 figures here. We've got the embellishment extras, that's the lamination and the embossing. That's the actual physical charge, not the actual embossed tooling. That gives us a total cost to manufacture that job of $1,343.23. So the cost to manufacture for the printer is $1.34 per unit. Okay, now with your markup, which is your little 12% markup on your VAT. You add that together, the total cost to the client is $1,805.30, which is cool. So what we can also do now is we can then, once we've set this all up, we can save that as a default. So if we save as defaults, the next time you come in, everything's set up exactly as you see it here. You'll have your light version on the screen, all the settings will be set up, your paper size, your percentages, everything will be in there, okay? So what I can do now is, with that done, I can now switch this over to client mode. So maybe I've got a client coming in, I've set my costs up, and I say, right, we've got your job. Well, you don't need to tell your customer, if you don't want to, the amount of hits. You don't have to show them all that. This hides most of the information. So you can see down here, like on the emboss, where we put the actual copy information, the description, we added that in there. So basically, it's really easy to add in information to guide the customer on what it might be. And to give you an example, let's just switch back to estimator view. Let's add our own extra in here, because we could add other things to it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, well, what else could we add to this? Well, we're going to add a custom effect. What is it going to be? Well, let's add some glitter. Hand applied glitter. So it's a description of what you're doing. And in this case, I'm going to say I'm going to do it per unit, and I'm going to charge 5 cents a unit to sprinkle some glitter on. Now you can maybe add another unit-based cost on there. Let's say we're going to add on labour, so manual labour, hand folding cartons. Well, in this case, maybe we're going to charge labour by the hour. We might say, well, the cost is, I don't know, $75 an hour. We're going to charge 1.5 hours, and we can set that up. We could also maybe do something else. Maybe you want to charge for electricity, if I can spell it right. And maybe we're going to do a flat charge on that one. And we're going to say, well, it's going to cost us $27 to do it. So we can add all of these in as different effects. So really easy. Ooh, make sure I put in, let me put the electricity. Yeah, I've got the electricity. I was looking at the wrong one. I thought I set the wrong one. So electricity to 27, manual labour $112.50, glitter $50, etc., etc. So we can factor all that in. So we can put in extra costs. We don't have to just stay where we are. We can go and add more and more things we want. Maybe you're driving it. Maybe you've got a personal courier that you use, and you're charging a courier transfer fee to drive from location to location to drop the bags or the cartons off. Whatever you want to do. So what we can do here is, as the client view, you'll see that all of those things are hidden, but we've got these description boxes. Now maybe the customer says, well, actually, you know, I'll fold the boxes myself. So you can say here, well, okay, well, currently the cost to the client, and notice how these boxes change. All the stepped information about all the charges, where it'll come from, all the markup, all your profit, everything is hidden. So let's just show that again. Let's go back to the estimator view, and you'll see that this total cost and cost per piece will change. So focus on this one. Cost per piece to manufacture is $1.53 to the printer. The cost to the customer is $2.06. Theirs is based on this final price. Okay, so you hide your markup and everything else, so you don't have to show all that sort of stuff. So that's a new feature that was added to hide all those extras. So you could basically say, maybe you're talking with a customer and they say, oh God, you know, it's a little bit expensive, come and get the price down. You could say, okay, if you want to fold the cartons yourself, we can switch off that and we can bring it down to $1.91. And I go, still a little bit too much. And we go, well, do you really need the neon pink on the cover? Maybe we just do that using magenta, in which case we could switch off the pink and you can bring it down to $1.90. Now, if you wanted to then start getting more intricate and say, well, we could drop the amount of white hits, we hide all that from the customer. So you would have to go back in here and change the hits in the white. So maybe you want to swivel your computer around whilst I see that, so you don't show everything. You can say, well, we could drop it down to 187 if we do the hits of white and we'll reduce it down. So the idea behind this is that you can then have a talk track with your customer, and you can say, look, you know, maybe we don't emboss it. Let's switch off the emboss and we'll be fine. Okay, we won't bother. So you can say the next, or you could say it this way. Let's go with the emboss. So we've got the physical die line in there, and you can say it's 187 per unit at the moment. But next time you print 1,000 copies, for example, we don't have to reorder the die because we've already got it. We can switch that off. So your production costs come down to 126 after that. So it helps you talk through with your customer the different prices and costings of adding fifth color and embellishments to it. Now you can save a PDF file. You can save a PDF file in client view, so you could save that and give it to your customer and say, here's the base costs, and send it across to them. All they would see is the basic information. So let me just try and get this up on the screen. I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to do this one. So let me bring, I'm going to have to probably go out of large screen mode. Let me just bring this over. So you can do copy summary. So what I've done here is I clicked on copy summary down here. So what that does is it takes all this information. So you can say, okay, you can email it to your customer. So you can say estimate summary, 1,000 units. This is the cost per unit. It includes white ink, electricity, glitter, lamination, emboss, deboss. Nice and easy. You can also do the same thing as a estimator. So you can go into here and you can copy that information and go in here and paste all that information in. Now, as an estimator, you would get more information because it's going to give you more details. You're going to say, okay, 1,000 units, 4 per sheet, stepped wastage, percentages, total amount of sheets required, and then it'll break it all down into all your little individuals. So this is one of the ones that's pretty cool. This is the one, remember we switched off the pink, so we only have the white at the moment. This is basically saying it's $1.65 using 2 hits with the coverage at 75%. So it does a mathematical calculation to work out the price per sheet. You've then got your embellishment costs, your glitters and everything else, and then all your totals down here. So total job cost is this. Then you've got your markup with your final pricing to your customer, and your cost to manufacture is 94 cents. So you can do all this. You can then save that as a PDF file, and let's do that down to desktop. Let's open up the PDF file. And the PDF file will then show you the same information all on a nice PDF file. So 2 ways of doing it. All the information's there. Great way to be able to talk it through with your customer and hopefully show the benefits of fifth color and the cost from adding different features. So there we go. The quick recap on the Eve embellishment tool, the estimation tool. And like I said, your MIS systems, your contracts, your costing system should always take precedence. But feel free to use this. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve it or add something to it, please do let us know. We're always happy to take on advice on what we might want to add to it. So thank you for watching this tutorial video and enjoy.